Hey, this is Scooter Beasley from South Mississippi, and you're listening to Bigfoot Society podcast.
Welcome to Bigfoot Society. If you have Bigfoot activity to report from the same areas discussed in this episode, please reach out to me directly after this episode. And if you'd like to be on the podcast to discuss a personal Bigfoot encounter, please reach out to me directly at bigfootsociety@gmail.com. Do you wish there was more Bigfoot Society to listen to every week? Well, there is now. If you become a supporting member over at Patreon, you get a special members-only episode every single week on Wednesdays, and sometimes even more episodes. Head on over to patreon.com/The Bigfoot Society. And now let's get on with the show. All right, Bigfoot Society, I've got the privilege of talking to Ginger tonight. Ginger is an individual from Overton County, Tennessee, and she reached out through the YouTube comments, and then we've had quite a back and forth over a pretty long time through email and other forms of communication. But I'm really excited to finally have Ginger on the program so she's able to share what she's been experiencing an extended period of time. But how are you doing tonight, Ginger?
Good. How are you?
I'm doing great. I'm just hanging out. I just got back from Oregon, some decompressing from that, but it was a great time, and I am happy to talk to you tonight. So this one's going to be maybe a little bit out of the ordinary. There might be a little bit more of a conversation in this one. Ginger and I were talking ahead of time, and that's a little bit more what she's comfortable with. So for those of you that like to hear me just be quiet, it's not going to happen today. So sorry, guys. But Ginger, I'm going to go ahead and let you start, though, and take us where we need to go for what's been going on with you and the Bigfoot in your area.
Okay. First of all, I did not believe in Bigfoot, most of my life. But after so much happens, you can't really continue to ignore it. So I moved here in 2018 to Overton County, and before that I lived in the Pacific Northwest, so I was aware that people believed in Bigfoot. I was near Skamania County, and that's pretty famous for it. But I didn't have a whole lot of things happen till coming to Tennessee. Sorry, I'm trying to gather my thoughts.
You're good. And so you moved to Tennessee, was it a thing where it kicked in right away, or did you kind of notice some out of the ordinary things and then it gradually, maybe it started amping up?
Well, we put cameras up on the cabin. It was a rental cabin, and we noticed like orbs and things, and we would hear weird noises that sounded sort of like monkeys in the woods. At least that's how some other people described it, the owners of the cabin. They were like, they sound like monkeys. And it was like a generally creepy feeling there. And there was a motion light on the barn that the owner said was always getting busted, and they didn't know why. They thought people were trespassing. I would notice bones on the trail and feathers and turtle eggs, like the shells. And we were supposed to keep the trail cleared. We got like a breaking the rent for keeping up the grounds, and they hadn't lived there for a while. And we noticed that there were always little trees getting pushed down, and some trees would be like twisted. And we started trying to stay up at night and try to figure out what the orbs were about. But it was just a rental, and we found property in a different part of Overton County. And I stayed here one night, and then he was there by himself, my boyfriend. And he decided to stay up all night and try to catch something on camera. And he got like a blob with arms that was circling the cabin a couple times. And then I went back to help clean up the cabin and finish moving things. And I had been putting, like, since weird stuff was happening, I didn't know what it was, but my mom taught me to leave offerings. So I didn't have, like, a whole lot of food there, but I would put out fruit bars, like, in the wrapper in case it rained, on a boulder in the woods. And this place was on a mountain. It was probably one of the highest mountains because it used to have a fire tower. And there's an old mine there. I think that's where they hide, but I'm not sure. What was I saying?
So there's a lot to unpack from that, all that. So first I want to ask you about, so you heard weird noises that were similar to monkeys in this area. Were there any particular monkeys that they reminded you of?
I'm not an expert on monkeys. It was in the distance too, but it was loud.
Gotcha. So you've been leaving out food, or you said offering area. Some people might call that a gifting area. Has there been a point where you've stopped doing that, or has that been consistent the entire time?
Well, I'm still talking about the rental cabin.
Oh, okay.
And so I wasn't there very long,
Got
maybe
it.
a few months.
Mm-hmm.
But here, I gifted for probably 4 or 5 years straight. I just recently stopped, just for financial reasons.
Got it. So just to make sure I'm on the right track. So you have the rental cabin where things were happening, and this is in Overton County. And then eventually you get an actual place of your own also in Overton County?
Yeah.
Okay.
Pretty
Gotcha.
much the opposite end of Overton County.
Okay. And so a lot of weird stuff happening at that rental cabin. Did they ever get really close to the cabin? I mean, you mentioned that you were capturing orbs on the camera, kind of like a blob with, you said, some appendages.
The orbs would get like right up to the window, which would be like the headboard of the bed. So it was kind of creepy. And the blob was huge, and it was, considering the size of the tree outside the cabin, it was probably like 9 or 10 foot. But it circled just out of range. Like, if the camera weren't like constantly on that day, well, at early morning, then it wouldn't have caught it because it was outside of the sensor area. And the weird thing was, it was like night vision, so everything was gray, but the blob was sort of a greenish tint. And you could see sort of arms moving.
Is this anything you ever saw with your own eyes or just in the camera capture?
I did not see. I was pretty creeped out at that place, so I kind of stayed away from the windows and didn't go outside there. It's a different feeling than here. But I think, talking to locals, there have been some confrontations there for decades. So I think that might be why they're more like that.
And when you say confrontations, what kind of things would you be meaning?
I heard that a young Bigfoot was shot, I think in the 70s. And then once I moved here to our farm, there was an old man who moved in after us, and he used to be a logger near the rental cabin. And he said a man was beaten to death, and they never found the person who did it. But not a lot of people beat other people to death.
Fair point.
And supposedly it was on that property.
The rental cabin property. Yeah. We both know, oh man. So I know from previous episodes that one side of Overton County is pretty wild and crazy, or in surrounding counties on the west side. I'm going to leave that there, and listeners can kind of use a map to figure that out. But yeah, I would not say it's crazy talk to say that we're having things like a person being beat to death, and it just seems like it's a pretty remote area in that county. Just from the research I've done, I have not been to the area yet. Did you ever talk to the owners of that rental cabin to see if they had experienced things like that?
They didn't seem to be believers. They're the ones who said it sounded like monkeys, the noise, because they were there.
Okay.
During the day when that was the sound they heard. But I don't know if they just didn't want to talk about it or if they really weren't believers. I mean, there was a broken window that was really high up too, and they didn't stay there very much, but they said it was their dream place. So I don't know.
That's interesting.
They would come to pick berries.
Okay. Were there any Bigfoot that would get really close to that rental cabin when you were on that property?
Yeah, they would get like 15 or 20 feet away. And there was a pond maybe 40 or 50 feet from the cabin, and the trail goes right near it. I have cats. They're a little loud. And that's, I don't know if I should bring up any woo aspects, but I had a weird experience.
I think you absolutely should, if you're comfortable with it. Yeah.
Because I know people like to separate the physical and the paranormal.
No,
but
I say we put it all together.
Sometimes it can't be separated.
Mm-hmm.
So I was walking down the trail, not very far from the cabin, maybe like 100 feet, headed towards the offering boulder that was probably like maybe 300 feet away from the cabin down the trail. There was just one main trail, really, that was kept mowed and cleared. And to the right, there were little game trails. And I started, it was to the right of the pond and the main trail. I started going off the main trail, which I never did because it was a creepy place, but it was a nice day, and I was like, maybe I should go check out the woods. And a bush started shaking to the left near the pond, maybe like 10 or 15 feet away from me. And I got screamed at, but I could see through the bush and there was nothing visible. And it wasn't like a ghost. I've seen ghosts my whole life on and off. My mom did too. And ghosts, you know, they look like people, just like they did in real life. And this was different. You know, it was just, I didn't see anything, but I could see the ground. I could see behind there, but the bush was shaking and there was a scream.
Was there, so it was a solid, like you could not see, you could see through the bush and there was nothing, or was there ever anything that was kind of wavy, like mirage-ish?
Like, I've seen the wavy mirage-ish thing here, but there, it was daytime. I didn't see a shadow or anything. I mean, I got pretty freaked out because it was a very loud scream. But it kind of sounded a little elk-like, you know, that noise they make.
Okay.
But very nasally. But it also had like a feminine, like high-pitchedness. So I was like, what is that?
Absolutely.
I think it's because it didn't want me to go down that side trail. It was trying to freak me out and distract me at the same time.
Did you ever see any tracks at all on that property?
Not there.
Okay.
I did walk down the trail, and I have to watch my feet all the time because I'm hypermobile and I twist my ankles, even just on a little pebble.
Okay.
So I'm always watching the ground. And I also like rocks, so I look for rocks. And on the way out, there was nothing on the trail, but on the way back, there was a feather with a notch cut out of it.
Do you know what kind of feather it was?
It looked like a barred owl feather, like a wing feather.
Sure. On this property, did you ever have any visuals of any creatures?
I mean, some shadows, but they were at a distance.
Okay.
And sometimes I would forget to lock my car, and I had like a fidget spinner in the door, and my fidget spinner was taken apart, which is weird.
That's very weird.
Happened. It was a brass one.
Did you ever have, did your dreams ever start to get affected?
Not there.
Not there. Okay. So the property we're going to is going to get pretty crazy, huh? Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely.
Less confrontational, but more obvious.
I want to make sure that we finish the rental property before we go to your current one there. Did you end up leaving the rental property because of these things that were happening, or was it for a different reason?
No, it was because of buying the farm.
Oh, yeah. Okay. Gotcha.
But I was going to go back and like clean up the place more, and I did not want to go back after the scream. That was the last day I was there. there a night after, and that's when he got the blob circling.
Your boyfriend?
Yeah.
Okay,
He
gotcha.
was really not wanting to be there alone.
Oh, that was kind of the last straw for him.
Yeah.
Yeah, I totally. I mean, if there's something screaming at my girlfriend and then I see a huge blob thing on my camera, I would probably be done as well. Any other weird things that you would want us to know about that rental property?
I mean, there were a lot of rocks piled in the woods.
Okay.
So I don't know if it was like an old burial place or something. It had been I think like a hippie farm previously at some point.
Have you ever seen, I know this happens on a lot of hiking trails where they're called cairns, and they're just kind of stacked up rocks as trail markers, or they're just random piles of rocks everywhere?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
These were bigger though, like maybe 40 pounds to 60-pound rocks.
Oh, really?
But it looked like they had fallen. Like they had been there a long time.
How high up do you think they were stacked? Like how many huge rocks are we talking about here?
Not like very high, like 3 maybe.
Yeah, but still, if you've got about 3 40 to 60-pound rocks stacked on each other, I mean, that's pretty sizable. I guess that could be a hippie farm thing, but that's not really my forte. But
I don't know if they could have buried some animals there or something. The trees were young trees.
Okay.
So it might have been pasture at some point. There's a lot of logging that goes on around. And they had made the pond. It wasn't a natural pond.
Gotcha. When you say offering site, it was just leaving food there, right? Nothing else going on?
Yeah.
Okay.
My mom was a medicine woman in her tribe. And a big thing is offerings.
Mm-hmm.
They do tobacco offerings and food offerings. I might have left tobacco a few times.
Gotcha. So there's a pretty sizable Native American influence to your heritage then?
Yeah. Okay.
Got it. Man, this one's going to get pretty intense. I just have a feeling. So you clear out of the rental property, things get weird, and then you move across county. Would you say we're okay to start moving over to the current residence to start talking about that one?
Yeah.
Okay.
I've been here a lot longer than
Gotcha.
I was only at the rental a few months, and
Okay.
it's been almost 6 years here.
Are you?
Oh, wait. No, I forgot something.
Oh, go ahead. Yeah.
They did bring the food bar wrappers and shove them behind the house camera. And I think that was to show they knew the camera was there and also asking for more food bars.
Ooh, that is really weird. That's kind of like a double thing there.
They also put a shotgun shell next to the deck, kind of shoved there too. And we'd put food out for stray cats, but the cats stopped coming and it would disappear from in front of the camera without triggering the camera. That's all, though.
The cat or the cat food?
The cat food.
Oh, wow, really?
We didn't feed them a whole lot there. We'd leave like a food bar a night, so that's not a whole lot for them, probably.
Yeah, I mean, you would guess even for a smaller one, I mean, those creatures are so large, the amount of calories they would need, I'm guessing that'd probably be like a little type snack for them. kind of like how Scott Carpenter in the same state would put I think it was Snickers bars up on trees. And just really interesting stuff. But this is the question where you're welcome to decline if you want. Are you on the eastern side of Overton or the western side of Overton?
I'd rather not say.
No problem.
I don't trust that people won't try to hunt them, and the group here is very passive and non-confrontational.
Sure.
I don't want that to change.
Yeah, absolutely. So I respect that. No problem. So yeah, let's start chatting about your current property that you've been there for 6 years, right?
Yeah.
So when you moved in there, how long was it until you started noticing that there's some really weird stuff happening on this property as well?
Well, pretty quickly we started clearing brush and trees for fence lines and clearing trails. I mean, there were already large game trails here, which we thought was kind of weird because we didn't see a lot of deer. But we kind of followed those trails and cleared out the underbrush more to make it more park-like. And that was pretty soon after moving here. As soon as we made the tiny house livable, we started on the landscaping and the fencing. And we would notice that since we went down there every day, like to the creek where the trails were, we'd clear the trail so I don't trip because, I have to watch my feet and I'm hypermobile. Stuff would appear on the trail overnight, like trees. And sometimes, like, from the brush pile that we had cut, it'd be like 30 feet away, but there'd be a branch or a tree that we had cut, put across the trail, really far from where we left it. And trees would be bowed down behind the tiny house. And we cut those trees down, and then more got bowed behind it.
When you say bowed down, can you describe a little bit more exactly what you're seeing with these trees by the tiny house?
Like in an arch, maybe like 25 feet away, just straight back behind it. Well, a little bit of an angle, because there's a trail also.
Were there... So imagine we're looking at the bowed tree. Was there another tree that was holding the end of the bowed trees down, or was it just bowed and staying there by itself?
No, it was just staying there.
Okay. Gotcha.
There was no twist to it or anything. It was just like that. And the shed was here. It's like a shed tiny house, like 10 by 16. The shed was already here, and someone had previously like camped in it. So there were like 2 trees that were bowed, and that was before we got here. And then after we cut those down, they bowed another one.
Oh.
And there were different kinds of trees. The first ones were I think magnolia or poplar, and the second one was a maple, I think.
So I get it now. So you're saying there were bowed trees, you cut them down as part of your landscaping thing, and then they immediately bowed other trees. Like, no, we want trees bowed here.
Yeah, I think it marks where we are.
Yeah, that is wild.
And they move rocks too. I think they step on them. They're pretty careful here about not leaving footprints, but they have a couple times. So I think they're moving stuff to step on it, and they're also moving stuff as barriers. after we kept clearing the trail, a giant tree went all the way across the creek and across the trail. So it was just like really hard to walk past that. And it happened right where, at the edge of where we had cleared an area. So I think they were like, okay, you cleared that area. That's your area. Don't pass this. Because
Right.
it was like the third tree, and finally it was a giant tree. So now it's like a bridge.
Wow. Did you look at that tree to see if it looked like it had been cut, or was it just pushed over, you could tell? Or
I didn't, because it starts on the neighbor's property across the creek. So we're not allowed to go over there.
that brings up an interesting point. Have you talked to your neighbors about weird stuff in the area yet?
I have talked to two neighbors on the east and west. The ones on the east, we got the property from. They just cut a piece off of theirs. And none of them believe in Bigfoot. They like convince themselves it's something else. Like the ones to the east, they had half of their corn crop disappear overnight. And they were like, it's a skunk or something. And I'm like, what? They don't do that.
Just like something took it overnight.
They just assumed it was a small critter. Took half of their crop. And they had all of their whole flock of chickens wiped out in one night, and only an organ was missing per chicken. It wasn't like the whole chicken. It was just like, I think it was the liver. But the coop was still closed.
Wait, so you're saying just the livers of the chicken were taken?
Yeah. And these were big chickens.
Okay.
And again, they just like tell themselves it's an animal that did that. But because I've observed what happens here, I don't think it was an animal. And I don't know an animal that would do that and not leave like an entry point to the coop.
Right. And so you probably weren't able to, I'm guessing they didn't have pictures of the chickens, or you weren't able to see, like, was it ripped apart or, anything
I didn't
like that?
see.
Yeah.
They just brought it up casually.
Right. Just casually, yeah. You mentioned as well that they usually seem to be walking on stones around the property, but there have been times where you've seen tracks. Is that right?
Yeah, there were tracks down by the creek, but they were very faint because the ground's not good for tracks. And in the pasture, my cow pasture, I'll move rocks, and then the rocks get moved again, and it'll be like in a line, and it's a line that like I could almost walk on the rocks, with a large stride.
Oh, yeah, I was going to ask, how far away are the rocks from each other?
They're about 4 foot from each
Okay.
other. I mean, in some spots they're clustered, and if you stand in the spots where they're clustered, it has a view of the doors to things.
Boy.
Because there's a cabin here now next to my tiny house where he lives. Because it's hard to live with a human being for that long in a 10 by 16 tiny house. So we have,
No,
neighboring tiny houses.
I totally get it. That would be an interesting setup. I want to circle back to the tracks though for a minute. So you said they were really faint. Do you remember any details that stood out to you when you saw them?
The big toe seemed separated.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh, wow. Okay, that's cool.
They were very wide and big. It was like maybe 1.5 or 1.5 of my shoes in length, maybe longer. And probably like the same in width.
Mm-hmm.
I think they're known to be smaller here than the Northwest.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, big time. The toe thing is interesting because that will happen when individuals don't wear shoes. Like if you can look up pictures of individuals where they've worn shoes or they've grown up not wearing shoes, and the toes will just do that naturally.
Yeah.
Which is, it's just kind of a cool to the side thing. How long would you estimate the tracks were that you saw?
Probably like 12 inches.
Okay. Gotcha. Interesting.
I probably should have measured it, but I didn't think about it. I just,
It's just one of those things where, like, if you're not in that researcher mindset, I mean, you're just kind of trying to figure out what's going on with your property. So I wouldn't say feel bad about it. It sounds like you've alluded that there are multiple creatures on the property, though, you think?
Yeah. I used to, I've had different gifting sites, and one of them, there used to be a picnic table down by the creek that was here when I got the property, and there's a grill next to it. And I used to put toys and stuff out there. I'd put some brass dice, and I'd set them all with one dot. And then they'd always move a few of them and group them together when I'd come back. And I'm trying to remember. I think it was either always set on 3 or 4 and then one next to it. So I'm wondering if that's them telling me how many are there. I don't know. Or if it means something.
So you have multiple gifting sites where you're almost making enrichment areas, kind of like in a zoo where, you know, they can play with certain things, but then you're still also putting food in the gifting areas as well?
Yeah, I put mostly apples or eggs, and I tried other kinds of fruit. They don't seem to like bananas. And I would put little wildlife figurines, and the deer one just like vanished. And I put a bell, a brass bell. I put some glow-in-the-dark stones. I put some round stones, and I would stack them and see if they changed. And I put, this is going to sound crazy, but I saw this lady on YouTube who was putting Bigfoot dolls out. And so I went and I got a Chewbacca, and I took like all the stuff off of him to make him look more squatchy.
Mm-hmm.
And I got a Barbie that was posable that looked sort of like me, and I changed the hair. And I got a Ken doll that looked like him, and I would put them out there and see if they moved them. And they moved the Ken doll away and positioned the Barbie differently next to the Chewbacca.
What do you mean they moved the Ken doll away?
Like I had grouped them all together, like holding hands, like laying down on the picnic table, and they moved the Ken doll away from the Barbie and Chewbacca, and then put the feet together like in a Y, and then put a leaf there.
And then they had the doll that you think represents you closer to the Bigfoot doll?
Yeah.
What makes, so you've mentioned that you think you're in a situation where it's a passive and not aggressive situation.
Yeah.
Correct? Okay. Man, I am just getting crazy vibes off this one, Ginger. I mean, just wow. I don't know. I haven't heard the whole story yet, though. So
there's like a lot.
I have a feeling there's a
I
lot.
hope we can go over all of it.
What would you say is there one piece of evidence where it's like, yes, there are definitely Bigfoot on this property? Like you've had a visual or something happened where it's like, yes, definitely they are here. Is it more like a gathering of evidence altogether?
Oh, there's a helicopter.
Okay.
I mean, I've seen their shadows multiple times. I've seen them like crouched behind trees and under the shed light and crawling behind the shed. And I saw, you asked me about what I thought was if they were like wavy, like a heat wave,
Right.
when you can't see them. I've seen that right outside the shed door after he moved out. I went out quickly and the lights were out, so I don't think they expected it. So there was just a little bit of light from the side light. And there was like a see-through sort of Bigfoot child, I guess you'd say. And it looked girly, but I was surprised and just stared at the face. And I talked in Ojibwe and Cherokee. I said hello, and then I backed up and went inside.
Gotcha. Did it respond at all? Or I guess
it froze.
It froze. Okay.
But it was like sort of see-through-ish.
So it was see-through-ish, but you could tell there must have been some kind of something there that made you think that it was a younger or a female.
It was short.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Like maybe 5 foot, 4.5, 5 foot, so really young. And I'm wondering if that's why it wasn't good at hiding.
Right.
Cloaking, whatever you want to call it.
Yeah, and definitely. There's something that I just made a realization. So you both started out in the tiny house, and then your boyfriend moved to another residence on the property, right?
Yeah, he built a cabin.
He built
next
a cabin. Okay.
Over the well.
Now, did this happen before the doll incident or after?
After.
So the doll incident happened, and then your boyfriend built another residence to stay in?
Yeah.
Do you think that was connected at all, or just a big coincidence?
I think it was a coincidence.
Okay. Gotcha. How does he feel about the activity that's on the property?
He's been a little more freaked out. He actually, here's some more woo. Sorry, my cats are really loud. I don't know if you hear them.
Oh, no, it's great background noise. You're fine.
So we were clearing the back 4 acres to try to fence it in as a separate pasture for the cows. And he went back there by himself to get some tools he left, I think. And he actually heard somebody speaking in his mind, but it was like, he said he couldn't understand what they were saying, and it sounded masculine, and it was coming from behind the laurel thicket. Like he could tell where they were somehow, and he has not worked on the fence since.
Is this happened recently?
That was like a year and a half ago.
Year and a half ago. Man.
Maybe 2 years ago.
And I mean, you guys have to do what you do, but if I was personally in that situation, I would not be living by myself. But I mean, maybe the two buildings are not that far away from each other, but that's up to how you guys have everything, of course.
Well, I talked to my mom's friend who's an elder medicine woman.
Sure.
And she called them ancestors, and she's coexisted with them. And my mom saw one like plain as day during a ceremony on a res. And he was swaying to the drums. So I think I actually trust him more than people.
Sure. Absolutely.
They like music. They have a language. They trade things. And I've been alone in the woods many times. And I'm comfortable here compared to the other property. So I've wandered the woods at night, and nobody's hurt me, and I'm unarmed. A lot of people feel like they need to bring a gun in the woods. I think that's the wrong thing to do. They're more likely to get hurt.
When you are in the woods at night, walking around by yourself, are there things that you experience out there that you think are related to the Bigfoot on your property?
They'll hoot like a barred owl. And I actually have experience with barred owls. Like, I befriended a whole family when I was a kid, and that's a whole nother thing. But the hoot doesn't quite sound right.
Can you explain that a little bit? I've heard that from other people too, where you can tell it's not an owl because there's something off about it.
It's not the normal pattern, and it'll be louder than an owl. And they also make rooster noises, and I think it was a kid that makes the rooster noises, a kid Bigfoot, because it sounded like a strangled rooster. And it's coming from the woods where there's no roosters. And they make coyote noises, but it's also like a bark chatter kind of thing. It's weird.
Sure. So and a
bull noise.
A bull noise. Okay. Gotcha. Have you ever tried communicating back and forth with them using those same types of noises?
Yeah. And, I mean, they'll respond to the owl one and to the cow noises. I'm wondering if it's different individuals making the different noises. Also, they sound like whippoorwills sometimes, but it doesn't quite sound right.
Sure. When you do the responses to them, how quick back are their responses?
It depends on the day.
Okay.
Sometimes they're really quick, and sometimes they're not.
I've been in situations really similar to that, where there'll be a communication back and forth, and they will start communicating in what seemed like half a second back. It is a very, very interesting situation, but I know exactly what you were talking about.
I got a lot of interaction when my mom was here. You know, she was a medicine woman, but she had dementia. So she was out here for a little while, and she got an RV, a new one, and parked it out here. So I had to live in there with her because she would be scared if she was left alone for more than 10 minutes.
Right.
Because she didn't know where she was or what was happening. And I would hear gravel crunching like near the hitch because I was in the bedroom because she wanted to sleep on the couch bed near the TV. And so I would like open up the window and look out, and I would stop hearing crunching. And every night there'd be like a slap, and the whole thing would rock. And again, I usually say hello in Ojibwe and Cherokee. And I think they're not afraid of women, so they interacted a lot. And I would leave since my mom watched TV like constantly when she was inside at night, and I would leave the shade up for a while so that if they wanted to watch TV, they could. And I would find like the grass sort of patted down in spots that were like body size for a large body. And if I went and squatted there, I could see the TV perfectly. So I think they liked that. And there were speakers on the RV, and I would play powwow music, and my mom would go around playing her drums around the driveway and doing her dancing, because even when she completely lost it, she still remembered that, and it calmed her. And I think they probably liked that music too, since they did at the ceremonies when she saw a big male. She said he was about 12 feet tall, and he was swaying back and forth.
Wow.
She said it seemed like he liked the drums. But nobody else saw him. But everybody was like, doing ceremonial stuff, and she had just come out of the house to go back to the group. And he was behind the shed. So I don't think anybody else had that angle.
Absolutely.
But my mom could see orbs with her like eyes. A lot of people only catch them on camera. I can't see orbs, but I've seen ghosts. She could see ghosts and orbs. So I don't know if the Bigfoot was cloaking and she could still see him, or if he was just visible, because it was daytime and he was just standing behind the shed. She said he was about as tall as the shed.
Would your mother ever say what color the orbs were that she was seeing?
I never asked her what color.
Okay.
She said it looked like they were playing going through the woods. Like zooming in and out and around each other. It was like groups of orbs.
On your property, do you ever... So we've talked about there's been mimic animal and bird sounds, things like that. Do you ever hear sounds of things that really just do not fit, that would not be mimic sounds of animals or birds?
They've impersonated my boyfriend multiple times.
The voice?
Yeah, like perfectly. The neighbor kid actually thought my boyfriend was calling him from the woods, but he was here with me.
So I want to make sure I get that right. So when they impersonate your boyfriend's voice, they're calling other people to come into the woods, right?
Yeah, a little boy. He was like probably 10 then.
Did they ever try to call you to go into the woods?
They did lure me into the woods a couple times, but once I thought I was following my boyfriend, and in my head I heard him say, "Let's go down this way." We never went down that trail, and we were doing landscaping stuff, and like in my head I heard him say, let's go down the creek now, but let's go this way. So I went down that way. I thought I was following him. And when I got down there, he wasn't down there. And then I came back up and I was like, why didn't you come down here? You said you were going down this way. And he was like, no, I didn't. He was still doing yard work.
Okay. So you have a situation where they've expressed to you that they want the two of you separated, and then the two of you are separated, and then they have mimicked your boyfriend's voice in order to get you to lure you into a certain area. Correct?
Yeah, but once I was down there, like, nothing happened.
Okay. Gotcha.
And I have followed, like, when my dogs have been outside, I have 3 big dogs.
Mm-hmm.
I have followed hurt dog noises into the woods, like extreme yelping, thinking my dogs were hurt twice. And when I got down there, there was nothing there.
Do you ever hear baby crying noises in the woods?
No.
Okay. That's
I've heard,
good.
like, voices, like, but I can't tell what it is. And he hears a lot of, like, chatter and voices and weird noises that freak him out, like 3 a.m. And he'll call me and wake me up. And I don't know if you want me to talk about that.
Yeah, I absolutely would love it. Yeah, go ahead.
So his cabin is, it has like a slanted shed roof. It's pretty flat. It's almost like a deck up there. But it's probably like 18 feet up on the low side. And it's built with like these big beams, 6x6 beams. They logged here, and he and the neighbor and made their own beams and wood for building the whole thing. And it's on a big concrete pad and rock wall. And when he hears something on the roof, it like makes those giant beams creak. And he's OCD, so he gets really angry that something's on his roof. Because obviously they're not going to know where to step, and he's worried it's making the glue mess up and it's going to bend the metal. So he'll like open the window and yell out. And one night he heard like a thump, but he said it was like a really deep thump, like if you threw a cinder block from like 6 feet up. So he thinks that big thump was them jumping off. He said, but one stayed up there, so there were 2 up there.
Has anything ever tried to enter any of the buildings that you have there?
Before he moved into the cabin, the doorknob was messed up. And he thinks they might have done it. Like, for a while, he just left it open. And then he started wondering if they would go in there, so he started locking it. And the first time he locked it, like, the doorknob was, like, loose. And again, because he's OCD, he was really angry about that.
So it sounds like, so you had it locked and it's almost like someone tried to force it open, but you said it was loose. All loose. Okay, wow.
Like the knob would move around in a circle. And before that cabin was built there, it was a well house. It was like a not very well built one. It was like cedar posts. The cedar posts were nice, but then it was like plywood or something. And then we tore that down and had stock panels, like round pin panels with a arched tent over it, and then a box over the well part. And I had a camp mirror hanging up there just on one of the round pin panels. It was like a metal camp mirror. And I noticed one day that there were fingerprints all over it. But the fingerprints were huge. Way bigger than my fingers. And I was like, wow, they have normal fingerprints. They're just big. So I think they like mirrors. Which kind of makes sense because, like, chimpanzees and gorillas like mirrors too.
Right. Do the dogs, you mentioned you have a few dogs out there. Do they ever act weird or anything like that?
Yes.
Okay.
There's these spots, which are like, places where I've seen shadows before, and like good hiding spots where you can see doors and windows and things. And my livestock guard dog, she goes to these spots, and every time I walk by them, every time I walk her by them, and she starts to dig there and sniff and dig. And I'm like, why do you have to do that every day? And if I walk her at night, which I don't do anymore, she'll just stop and stare off and sniff. And one night or a couple nights, she like would go to a spot and just lay down and hide. And I'm like, we're supposed to be going potty and then getting back inside because it's dark. Because, I listen to a lot of stories to learn more. And you occasionally hear one of dogs with their heads ripped off, so I don't really want my dogs outside.
Yeah, no, definitely. You sometimes have those things happen. Fortunately, it sounds like you're in a situation where you feel that you're more safe instead of under threat.
I've actually wondered if they've befriended one of my dogs because she'll come back smelling weird and a little skunky and with a bone and really happy, like she just got cuddles, because she like gets a smile on her face when she gets attention. And it's just like if she met a stranger, it's the same look on her face. And she's brought back like skulls and stuff. And
What kind of skulls?
a pig skull and a deer skull. And one night we heard, wait, no, it was daytime. We heard a scream, and then some deer ran across the pasture towards the scream, though, which didn't make sense to me. So there's not a lot of deer. Somehow they found deer here.
Right.
I think they're fairly comfortable here because they'll make noises, and they've left gifts like a marble and some metal weights, and for some reason turtles, probably because they probably see me releasing adult turtles, so they keep leaving baby turtles on the doorstep.
It sounds like in this particular area, they are able to really affect the living creatures that live on this area. Everything from your dog to the neighbor kid to both of you, to maybe even the deer. It's a very interesting situation.
And this is land where a previous neighbor that passed away, he saw some what he thinks were Cherokee spirits. And I don't know if that's common
I don't know if that's an overly common well, I don't know, maybe for that area, but do you think is there a possibility there could be burial grounds on that property?
I think there are, because there's these weird boulders that are like cairns, like you'd see in Ireland.
Yeah.
And they're covered in ferns. Like, I could fit under them, like crawl in them. And they don't look right, like they're square. I haven't like called anybody out to assess them because I don't think they should be disturbed.
I wouldn't recommend it. No.
I don't want anything to disappear.
Nope.
Or get moved.
Yeah, I would say probably leave stuff the way it is the most you can. I mean, I know there's already been some landscaping work, but like I if it was my property, I wouldn't go moving around stuff like that. No.
They're pretty obvious about where they don't want us to go because they keep moving trees.
Right.
But with the cairns, it feels like a place where you don't want to walk. So I've piled like brush piles around it in like a fence sort of area. And I even have like I call it the fairy tree, like they do at sacred sites in Ireland.
Yep.
I put like jewelry on it in case they like that. It's like big stones. But to try to mark the area for like, so everyone knows not to go there. And I tell my family if they visit not to really walk around there.
Yeah, I would say that is a definitely good idea. I mean, that's a situation where you wouldn't want people coming in that weren't respectful to the area, and then they go messing stuff up, and then you would have to be the people that deal with that and live with that situation. Like if there's any fallout from it, you know.
And there's a spot near the cow pasture where the trees are sort of in a circle, and there's like a clearing, and there's a big pile of like trees. It's like a giant brush pile, but there's like a hollow spot underneath. But I haven't really gone into it because I don't want to. I don't think it's a good idea.
Sure. Do you ever hear wood knocks on your property at all?
Yes. I don't really notice them a whole lot anymore because it happens so much.
Sure.
But there's also, I mean, I'm in the country, so there's also a lot of gunshots and equipment noises. So it's hard to tell what is them and what is a neighbor being loud.
Right. Have you ever noticed if there's anywhere you're pretty sure are there weird patterns to when they happen?
I haven't noticed.
Okay.
I probably need to take better notes. I do notice they're more active when it's really dark, like a new moon. But also we've started turning the lights out at night, and I think they're more comfortable because they've been messing with his house more since then. He's like, turn the lights back on.
So explain what you mean by they've been messing with the house more. Is that stuff we've already talked about, or is there more stuff happening now that you've been turning the lights off?
He's heard more like voices outside, close to, like, there's the cow fence maybe like 5 feet from his cabin. So they're like walking in between the cow fence and the cabin, on that side, and that's where he hears the voices from. And there's like a window, but the window's like probably 12 feet up or more.
So he hears the voices within 5 feet of his cabin at night?
Yeah. That's why he gets freaked out.
Yeah,
And then
no,
he hears the creaking.
I want to ask it, like, is he okay? Like, that would be really hard to deal with, I think.
I try to talk him down so he
Yeah.
doesn't get freaked out.
Oh, yeah. Absolutely. Have you guys ever heard the Sierra sounds before?
Probably.
It's usually described as like it sounds like a foreign language. It would be interesting for him to listen to that. You can find it on YouTube and to see if that's similar to what he's hearing or if it's something completely different.
I'll tell him to do that.
Yeah, I would be interested.
He was trying to record sounds, and the best he got was like a kind of thing.
Oh, that's incredible. So he is trying to record stuff. That would be really interesting to see what he records.
He thinks they can tell when he's doing it.
Mm-hmm. No, I agree 100%.
Because it gets quiet when he does it.
Yep. And I don't get it either, but I have experienced it in person where when the recording stuff goes off, that's when the stuff happens. And I don't get it.
Also, one time I was down at the creek and I used to carry walkie-talkies around in case something happened when I was by myself. And one time I had just charged the walkie-talkie and it completely drained in like a minute. And so I went back up, but it never happened again. I mean, I stopped bringing it down there. I don't know if that's a common thing or not.
No, that's extremely common thing reported by Bigfoot researchers, that their batteries will just go down to zero all of a sudden. Just a weird thing that seems to be associated with Bigfoot research and people that are in areas with heavy activity. Their camera batteries and their audio recorder batteries will just go down real hard.
For a while, the gate camera battery had to be replaced unusually often too, and it's near the neighbor's pond.
Gotcha. Man, this is a really intense one. And this has been happening for the last 6 years, you said?
Yeah.
Wow.
It's been like a little different since stopping gifting, you know? Like they don't seem to come around my place as much. They seem to be messing with him a lot.
That's really interesting because a lot of times when you hear that the individual stop gifting, that can sometimes create a negative response where they're like, okay, where's the food, you know?
Sorry, my fan just turned on. I don't know why it turned on itself, but... Sorry, what were you saying?
So I was saying that sometimes when you're in a situation where the individual stops gifting, then that can even create a negative response from them. But it sounds like in this case, that's really not the case.
Yeah, I think they like joking with us. Like
Okay.
we're entertainment, maybe.
Gotcha. So maybe it's like if your boyfriend is freaking out more, they might be getting more entertainment from that.
Yeah, I think they like messing with him.
He listen to this and be like, yeah, it's not funny.
I think they like to show their bravery by messing with him.
Yeah, right.
Because I think it's the young ones.
Yeah, it's their test into adulthood is messing with your boyfriend.
Oh, and another weird like woo thing. The one time I really saw their shadows clearly, like close up, I went to sleep right away after.
Like of your own control, or it just happened?
I just laid back and went to sleep, and I don't know why.
That's really weird.
That was when they were crawling behind the shed.
So,
And I had just burned sage. So I think the smell might have brought them in.
oh boy. So you mentioned the crawling thing earlier. So you've actually seen them crawling, or is it more you see like a shadow crawling?
It's like deep shadows.
Deep shadows.
And that was probably like 4 or 5 of them in different sizes.
Crawling all together.
Like it looked like 2 of them were standing further back and then some were crawling towards the shed. There's also an outdoor kitchen right there, like under a tent thing. And the trash gets raided a lot. They also take stickers from the burn pile that are holographic and put them places.
I want to ask you a question, and I don't want it to come across as I'm just going to ask it, and I just want you to receive it in the most positive way. How are there any times where you were under the influence of anything, or are you pretty much a person like myself where you're not under the influence of a lot of things?
I have a lot of allergies to things.
Okay.
Like even alcohol, the yeast in it makes me sick.
Gotcha.
So I'll like throw up from it. And I've actually, when I lived in Washington, I became allergic to weed
Oh, wow.
because I guess I used it too much there. But
Fair enough.
I have a genetic condition where I can't take very much of it also. I process it too fast.
So you're saying in this area, you're really not messing with
In
anything.
Tennessee, no.
Oh, wow. Okay. That's good to know, though. You are pretty much sober all the time and experiencing all this stuff.
And the only medicine I take is for my thyroid.
Gotcha.
So it doesn't affect me.
So that doesn't matter. Wow, this is really a really interesting one. Do you have any dogman activity in this area?
I've heard of some like north of here.
Yep.
I don't know what the signs for that would be. I have seen a large dog footprint, but it could have been a wolf. I don't know. I feel like Dogman would be way bigger than that. Or I don't know what their feet look like.
I mean, I can say that there are neighboring counties of this area where there's a heavy presence, where there's actually like visuals, and that's really the most I can get into that. But I was just curious if there was any of that happening on your property since you're in Overton County. But
I do wonder because of all the bark chatter.
Bark chatter.
Yeah, like I don't know if they coexist together, but like there's a lot of bark chatter, if that makes sense.
So is that like you're hearing language, but you're also hearing barking at the same time?
Yeah.
Okay.
And it's like loud from the woods. But I don't know if like the Bigfoot make those noises or not. I've never researched dogmen a lot.
Yeah,
I don't know what to look for.
It's not really my thing either, but as it turns out, there are multiple places in the country where there's actually groups that are interacting. There's Dogman and Bigfoot interacting with each other, so it just starts to come out in certain things that I talk to people about. So I've kind of picked up stuff on the side. Do you ever hear whoops on your property at all?
Not specifically whoops, no.
Okay.
I think they're cautious here compared to the other ones. There's a lot of ex-military people here that are like armed to the teeth. So I think that's why they move things to step on, and they make animal noises or people voices to not be obvious, other than the bark chatter.
And so are you talking about like there's ex-military people like in your neighboring vicinity, that kind of thing?
Like 3 out of 4 neighboring properties are ex-military.
Oh, wow. Okay. Well, that's cool. Do they ever do mimic noises for mechanical devices like lawnmowers or anything like that?
I have not heard that.
Okay. Gotcha.
They have set off the car alarm
Really?
at night and left a handprint.
How do you think, or how do you know that it was probably them that had set off the car alarm?
Because we went out to look with a flashlight and there was a really big handprint on it.
Oh, so you think maybe slapped the car?
I think they were squatting, and then I don't know. It was like the spot where the handprint was, it looked like if a big person was, like a really, really big person was squatting and put their hand on the car. And then I don't know if they were trying to open it since the ones at the other property got in my car. It was his car, though.
Was there any material that was left with the handprint? Like a waxy substance or anything like that?
I mean, it seemed like a really dirty hand, maybe.
Gotcha. How...
It was an obvious handprint.
Okay. If you had to give like rough dimensions of what it looked like, how big a hand could you describe it as?
It seemed like a couple inches longer than our hands, but I don't know what position the hand was in when it made it.
Sure.
You know?
Gotcha.
And there were also different sizes of hands, like maybe the kids hiding behind the cargo trailer.
So multiple...
Which was further back from the shed from that.
Multiple handprints left.
Yeah.
Wow.
And we've found handprints multiple times on the cargo trailer. I guess it's a good hiding spot.
Yeah.
And there's a A-frame thing that has wood stacked up next to the shed, and there's a tarp as a roof, and about at my eye level there's a hole in the tarp, like if somebody poked a hole in it.
Really?
And through that hole you can see the shed door.
Oh my goodness. There's...
And both
wow.
the ends of the A-frame are open, so you can just walk into it.
Yep.
But it's like a good hiding spot. Oh, and there's like a body-sized ditch in the cow pasture, and it's also a good spot for looking out. Or it was until the trees grew up, and now it's started to fill in with erosion, and it hasn't been dug back out. And there's a rock in it for like sitting on, I guess.
Okay.
And a lot of the rock trails go towards that, and then into the clearing.
Have you ever been gifted any dead animals?
Yes, but I can't tell if that's the cats or not.
Sometimes they would not have a head. I guess that could be cats too, but...
there was a rat. A big rat.
Maybe like bigger animals than a cat would usually leave.
There was a possum and... I'm trying to think. I mean, there were the live turtles. That was weird. There was a snapping turtle and a box turtle.
What you're saying? You're saying there was a possum left without a head?
No, the possum had a head.
Oh, okay, but it was dead and left like at your doorstep or whatever?
Yeah.
Okay.
So it's kind of hard to tell what is
right.
animals and what is them.
Was its neck broken or anything?
I didn't check.
Okay, gotcha. What's the most recent thing that's happened on your property?
Um, Probably the roof stuff on his cabin.
Not just within the last few days or weeks or...
Probably weeks.
Okay. Man.
I mean, it's pretty normal to go outside and hear an animal noise right when you open the door. And then, I've heard whistles too.
Oh, really? Okay, so you're going outside and you're hearing whistles right away?
Yeah. I've heard that twice. I whistled back.
Oh, no, don't whistle
People
back.
say don't do that, but I did.
Don't do it. I did that, and it was a bad mistake in Iowa. I think I contributed to some bad things happening because of that. Also, yeah, I mean, you're aware of what to do and not what to do, but you can, yeah, you never know how they will interpret stuff, right? But,
Some nights when I get creeped out, I'll block the door with a stick through the handles because it's like a shed door, and I put some big gate handles on just to like reinforce it in case they do try to get in, because it's the knob's not that great. But if they wanted to get in here, they could, and they haven't tried.
well, I mean, that's the thing. It's like, it doesn't matter what kind of place that you have, which this isn't really comforting to people listening, but I mean, at the end of the day, like, they are able to pretty much break down most anything, but you know.
Oh, and I have another not visible Bigfoot story I forgot to
Awesome.
say.
Let's go for it.
So when the RV was there, and I was living there with my mom, my boyfriend would come occasionally and like hang out there and talk with us. And one time he was walking there, and then something was like 5 feet away in the tall grass to the left of the RV door. And obviously him walking up scared it, and it got up and took off. And so he freaked out and took off running into the RV. It was like cussing.
Wow. Yeah.
And I was like, what is happening? And he was like, he just ran in and shut the door.
Man, I mean, more power to him, because that guy's living through some stuff. I can't see how he is still there, but that's
They have traumatized him.
Yeah, good for him for sticking around. I'm going to. There is a park in Overton. You mentioned there you might have some accounts that relate to that area.
Yeah, I talked to somebody who was watching over the park, working there.
Okay.
It's like a RV kind of park where people do off-road vehicles too.
Oh, okay. So I was referring to, there's a state park, but so you're saying it's an RV park as well.
Oh yeah.
Okay. Sorry, go ahead.
This one's closer to me
Okay.
than the rental place. And I was talking to a guy who was staying there for the season, and he found a footprint on one of the covered picnic areas. And so we went there to hike down to it, and it was an extreme sort of holler, and we were not prepared for that, and almost didn't get back till dark.
Wow.
And I was really freaked out. It was not good vibes there. It was sort of worse than the rental property. I can feel like energy vibes, I guess. Like, you know, I don't know how to explain it.
No, I get
I don't
it.
know if that's like the most in women in my
I totally
line or
get
something.
it. Yeah.
But there's caves there and a waterfall, and one of the caves had like a solar panel to power the lights. I don't even know how that solar panel worked because this holler's so deep. Like the sun didn't seem to shine there. And the people there said the solar panel had rocks thrown at it. They were like, some kids threw rocks at it and broke it. But it's a cave. It's a huge cave. And I think that was their cave and they didn't want lights in it. So they broke the solar panel. Now people don't really go in there unless they have a flashlight. Not a lot of people bring a flashlight. But I left a food gift down there because I accidentally picked up a box turtle shell, and then afterwards I got the feeling that maybe that was theirs and they were marking something with it, so I put it back. And I felt bad because there were like bowed trees and stuff. That whole place flooded.
Really?
So I don't know if they're there anymore.
So you're saying that there could be an issue sometimes if you take something from a certain area and you don't return something?
Yeah, like, I think some things, since they don't, have pockets or anything to carry stuff, I think they leave things and they think people aren't going to pick them up. I think a lot of rock tools that people find and think are artifacts are actually theirs. Because I was at a cave near the rental cabin. We were looking at land there, and it was like a spring in a cave. And there were a lot of rock tools right there at the entrance. And then my dogs wouldn't go in the cave. It was a big cave. But, I don't have a lot of self-preservation, so I went in the cave. And there was this part
That's funny.
where you could, if you went in the water, it looked like there was another chamber. I didn't go there because I got a bad feeling. I was like, I'm not going in the water chamber.
Yeah, there you go. Yep.
I think they're hiding in there. And there was like a bone pile. So I didn't continue, but it was a very nice cave.
What kind of bones do you think?
I didn't really inspect them that much. There was like a skull and some other bones.
Sure.
I was like, okay, I'm getting out now. The dogs really are freaked out. My dogs had never acted that freaked out before, and they still haven't acted that freaked out again. So they were not wanting to be there.
Clay County is right next to Overton. Have you ever heard of anything from Clay County regarding Bigfoot?
I have not, but I don't know anybody in Clay County.
Okay, just checking.
I have heard stuff from Cumberland County.
Okay.
A Bigfoot stealing a cooler and kind of destroying it.
Wow. That's very interesting.
They let it happen. They're just like, okay.
Oh, yeah. I mean, it's like,
cooler.
what are you going to do, right? You're not going to stop. It's like, yeah, I can get another cooler. It's fine.
Yeah.
Have you ever heard any accounts in your area of there being aggressive interactions at all?
Other than the possible, like, kid getting shot and the beating to death.
Yeah, yeah, right.
I haven't heard anything else. I think mostly they're avoiding us and sometimes like gifting back and forth. Did I mention the chicken eggs?
Maybe in passing, but go ahead.
I used to keep a lot of chickens, like fancy breeds and stuff. And chickens will go through phases where they don't lay. And I would leave 2 eggs out every night. And there was a time where I ran out of chicken eggs. So they didn't get their eggs. And I was starting to get eggs from the grocery store for us, but I didn't leave extra eggs out. and they got an egg carton from the trash and put it at the door of the coop, like asking for eggs.
Really?
And I've put out soup cans before, and they'll like leave the can in my path if they like the soup,
Oh, wow.
instead of just leaving it at the gifting spot. So I think if you give them food that has a wrapper, it's easy for them to ask for more.
There's so many things happening on your property that shows intelligence. It is incredible. Yeah.
And it seems more human level intelligence. I've interacted with chimpanzees, well,
Okay.
a chimpanzee, and because my stepdad knew people with private zoo, and it's a different level of intelligence. It seems more human-like, but different kind of human, if that makes sense.
Oh, it definitely makes sense.
And I wonder if the government won't acknowledge their existence because they wouldn't be able to protect them from us. Because they also don't acknowledge that there's cougars and red wolves here, even though I've seen them. So
Well, isn't it
I
funny?
think it protects them.
Isn't it funny how certain parks will get shut down to the public, and just for who knows why.
Yeah, I've noticed that.
Yeah, maybe.
That happened a lot in Washington.
Yeah, it happens in Tennessee too. You'll start to notice, if you start looking around, you'll start to notice it. Yeah.
Oh. When I was in North Carolina, a lot of things were getting shut down for supposedly bears. And I drove like an hour and a half out of the way because I really wanted to go there. So I went in the back way, and the smell was intense, but I never saw a bear. But there was some intense smell the whole way up. The smell followed me.
Absolutely.
And I was going up a mountain at sunrise.
Ginger, your story
With my sister.
is really intense. And a very, very, I would say, a very active property, just from how you've been explaining it. And I would even imagine that there's more going on too. If we were to really get into it. But I just want to say thank you for spending your time on the podcast tonight and sharing what you're experiencing. I know that it is hard to find people that will listen to what you've experienced and not think that you're crazy, because I am experiencing that myself now, so I get it. Yeah, but if you ever have any other things that happen or you want to reach out, you are more than welcome to reach out, and we can always do an update in the future, and hopefully your boyfriend continues to be okay as well. So, yeah.
Yeah, hopefully.
But I just want to say thank you for coming on tonight.
Okay. Thank you.
Please take a minute to help out the show by subscribing on YouTube, making sure you hit the bell so you don't miss any notifications, and share the episode on YouTube with a friend. Also, if you're listening to us on a podcast, thank you so much. Make sure that you're subscribed, share the show with a friend. Really, it's all about sharing the show wherever you can. If you've had a Bigfoot encounter related to the following or know someone who has, please reach out to me at bigfootsociety@gmail.com or pass on my email. Here's a list. If you've had any encounters in Oregon, which I'm sure there's probably a few of you out there, please feel free to reach out immediately. You can use email bigfootsociety@gmail.com. A special thank you to all the Bigfoot Society Patreon and YouTube channel members. It's your support that helps keep the show going and I extremely appreciate it. If you want to join in the fun, you can join over at patreon.com/the Bigfoot Society. I'll see you there. And again, thanks for listening.
Her and I can get on here and we can tell our stories. Maybe there's somebody else out there listening that's too afraid to tell their story. Maybe this will give them the courage to come out and not feel so bad about it. Who cares what anybody thinks? I know what I saw. I know what's out there. That's all I care about.
Please let people know. Please let them know. If you ever see one of these things, you need to tell. Because if you don't, then shame on you. You know? Shame on you.